Okay. So the recording is starting, and you should be seeing on the top of your screen a little icon that says that recording is in progress. Okay. So yeah, let's just get started really. So my name is Laura. I'm the chapter lead for Codecademy Soul, and today we'll be talking about sentiments. And yeah, anything that comes to mind, just leave it in the chat. I will not be looking at the chat while I'm presenting, but I will be checking in when I'm going through the code that I'll be using. Okay. So yeah, just to give you a little outline, and let me just move that as well. So what I'll be doing is I'll be introducing myself, and then I will explain the rationale and also maybe set some expectations for this meetup. I will give you a little preview of what we're doing. Then there will be some code along. I will show you how to actually get sentiments out of your text. And afterwards, we'll have a little chat. Okay, wait. So now, just a few words about myself. So my name is Laura, and I live in Seoul in Korea. Overall speaking, I would think of myself more tech adjacent than a tech person per se. I do online marketing in my day job, and then I look at coding as a hobby. If you would like to introduce yourself now or later, that is completely okay, but you don't have to, of course. It's completely up to you. Okay, and then just to explain maybe why this meetup. So I had a book that I really liked, which was Kafka's Metamorphosis, and I found that there were so many layers and ways of interpretation that I just wanted to have maybe a tech perspective as well. And generally speaking, so I'm a hobbyist. I like to look at the world around me, and I like to solve the problems or the questions that I have using code. Maybe it would be interesting if you could let me know what brings you here. I think that could be quite engaging. And yeah, just to give you a preview of what we're doing. So first of all, I will recap what I did previously, which was pre-processing and tagging and grammar chunking. And then I will go into the actual meat, which is a sentiment analysis. I will be using positive and negative tones, and also a pipeline called the Badra-Savani pipeline. I'll be using a couple different libraries as well. And then we'll finish off with a little chat. Okay, and just to give you a graphic preview of it as well as what we're doing. So I looked at positive and negative connotations. I looked at nuanced sentiment analysis. And then I also looked at sentiment analysis per sentences divided by negative, positive, and neutral emotions. And I will talk you through it, how I got to these results, so that you can hopefully apply it to your own questions or maybe research that you're doing. Okay. So yeah, that'll be the chat question later. So maybe while we're talking, maybe think about that if you haven't already, and we can have a little chat in a bit. But for now, I will jump into the actual code and check whether there are any questions. Okay. Okay, just checking the chat. Looks like you don't have any questions yet. I will have a look while I'm explaining things, just to be sure. But if you don't have any questions, I'll just move on. Just maybe giving you a few seconds to type if you wish. No? Okay, I'll just move on then. That's completely fine. So let me share my screen. I'll be using VS Code as my code editor, and it's a Jupyter Notebook environment. Just a second. Okay. All right, so just to give you a quick little recap. So in the previous two meetups, what I did was I did a bit of pre-processing. I did a bit of grammar chunking. The results that I had from that meetup was that Gregor, a person called Gregor is the main character, The setting is a room. There's some talk about work. There's a talk about a way. There's talk about a door and a time. There is a lot of talk about, there's a lot of talk about family members as well, and body parts as well, legs, hands, and heads. And then, for example, there is something like open door, a little leg, a terrible vermin, next room, plus Greg and a family member. So these were the kind of chunks that I got from my grammar chunking. And yeah, so just to kind of get started with sentiment analysis, and maybe I'll just show you briefly some of the libraries that I used as well. Okay, so if we have a little look up here, so I had requests. I use Matplotlib for visualization. I had NLTK for my language processing. I had an inbuilt analysis. I had an inbuilt counter. I had PyTorch, TensorFlow, and I also used Spacey. I'm not sure, as a Spacey, maybe I'm mispronouncing it. And I also use TextBlob, and I had a lot of things that I had to install as well. I will be sending out a copy of this notebook following the chat. But if you would like me to take any of these and maybe put them in the chat, just let me know. I can pop them in the chat as well. Yeah, but just let's go on to the analysis itself. Sorry. Okay, so we're here at the analysis. And so what I did first was I defined the text for my positive versus negative pipeline. And I just, what I did was I cut off the beginning and the ending parts because they have a lot of words such as copyright, Project Gutenberg, you're not allowed to use this and make profit. You that kind of like legal restrictions. So I kind of cut them off. And then what I ended up with was just the pre-processed text that I had previously. Then I used a pipeline, which I imported from my libraries. And I just ran the whole text through that pipeline. And what it does first is it just uses a positive versus negative pipeline, which is kind of the default setting. And what it does is it gives you a positive or a negative score and tells you on a scale from 0 to 1 how high that score is. And what I did was I just simply counted those. And then interestingly, for me personally, I found that most of the words that I had pre-processed were classified as positive. And that struck me as quite curious because the book itself is a very desperate work of fiction. So I was quite taken aback, and I thought to myself, okay, maybe I need a more nuanced model. And what I did is, again, I took the same pipeline that I imported previously, and I added another model as a keyword, which is this Badris Savani model. Is an open source model that you can download. And I then had a look. And then what that model does is it's so interesting. What that model does is it takes each word that you give it and it gives 6 dimensions per word. It has anger, it has joy, it has fear. What else do we have? Sadness and love and surprise. Yeah, and that's it. So it has these 6 labels and it gives each word a score, again, between 0 and 1. And what I then did was I had a little function and I wanted to find out what was the highest scoring emotion in that little subset. And I counted the highest scoring emotion. And then again, what I found so interesting when I counted the highest scoring emotion per word was that anger scored highest by a lot. Actually, if you have a look over here, 6,564 words out of that 10,000 corpus that I gave it. So more than half is actually anger, followed by joy and fear. And then sadness and surprise, hardly anything. So for my case, I found that very, very shocking in a way. Okay. And then next thing I thought was, okay, maybe I'm getting a little bit too lost in detail. Maybe I'm being too specific. So what I did is I used Spacey and I used TextBlob, two libraries that I imported into my Python environment. And I wanted to see, okay, can I maybe analyze each sentence as opposed to each word? Maybe I'm being too nitpicky. And what the model does is it gives you scores ranging between positive, negative, and neutral. Okay, so I did that. And what this code does is hold on, let me just scroll down a little bit. Okay, what it does is it measures something called sentiment polarity, which you can see up here. And if the polarity of the sentence is below 0, it counts as negative. If it's above 0, it counts as positive. And if it's equal to 0, it's classed as a neutral sentence. So I did that. I let that run its course. It was very fast. I was very, very pleasantly surprised at how fast it actually was. And then after 5 seconds, hold on. Hold on. Did not let it run. 1 sec. Maybe I didn't run it previously. Just 1 sec. And then I visualized those counts. And then what I found really interesting was that from that analysis, I ended up again with a positive score being much higher than a negative or even a neutral score. So even though I thought the book that I was reading was quite a sad or quite a melancholy book, in terms of sentiment analysis, it's classed as either positive or even neutral, but the negative sentences actually are a lot less than I expected. Okay, so that's it for the meat for the moment. And I'm happy to go over any of these code bits. Let me just have a look at the chat. Okay, is there anything you would like me to express in more detail? Is there anything you would like me to go back? Does TextBlob require any pre-training? I'm not sure. So again, here's the thing: I'm not an expert. From what I can tell, when you download it, you download a corpus that it's been trained on previously, and then it's already been trained. That's my understanding of it. Same with NLTK and Spacey. When you download it, the download instructions, the installation already has a little command where you also download a corpus. So from what I can tell, they've already been pre-trained in some way, but I'm guessing there's maybe a way of improving those pre-trained models. HJ, are you doing anything in terms of sentiments professionally, or like what's your interest? You're doing it as a hobby as well. Okay, nice. Okay, I'm just going to give you a moment. If you want me to go back to anything, just put it in the chat. I'm happy to go into more detail. Okay, that's totally fine. In that case, I will send out a copy of this notebook. I will upload it to my GitHub as well. Hey, excuse me. I will upload it to my GitHub. I will send you a copy within the next 24 hours so you can access it as well. But yeah, let's maybe just go back to the chat section of the meetup. Just one moment. Okay, so yeah, today's question is, what is maybe something that you wish you were better at, and maybe why as well? Is there anything you would like to share? I can go first, but I'm also happy for someone else to go if you wish. Oh, sorry. Also, let me just stop recording just to maintain privacy. Okay, I'm going to stop recording in 3, 2, 1.